I'm Leigh Honeywell, and I'm going to talk to you about some lessons I've learned in building communities in 3 cities, 2 countries, and advising communities around the world, particularly hackerspaces. Hopefully you'll come away with some lessons that you can learn to the kinds of communities of practice that the people in this room build. So I spend a lot of time thinking about how we get stuff done, about what works and what doesn't, what gets in the way and slows us down versus acting as a force multiplier. Much of what works is in the ways people relate to each other, and some of it is the processes, but also in the values we define for our communities and how we communicate them. Everyone's seen this comic 100 times. It's Creative Commons, yeah. These are the models we have in our head for how management works in technology companies. It's no wonder that the word is a scary one around here. There's a deep and justified distrust for hierarchy in Silicon Valley. When I worked at Microsoft, you could navigate the org chart from within Outlook itself. But I'm actually a big fan of the clarity that provided. I was born in 1984. My mom was the first lawyer at her firm to get pregnant. This is a picture of my first haircut. That was over 30 years ago, and somehow my friends who work at startups in the Valley are having to write the maternity policies at their startups too. These are engineers, not HR people. One of the things that came out of the women's movement in the 1970s was this idea that was best articulated by Joe Freeman, was the idea that when we hand-wave away structure and hierarchy, we end up just reproducing hierarchies from outside of our own community. We end up making those hierarchies invisible. Not just invisible, but intractable, and with a tendency to reflect bigotry and other problems, So this is a trap that I see a lot of companies around here falling into. And as we're growing up, we have to think about what we want to build, because otherwise we end up with stuff like Google Buzz. In 2010, they released this product without thinking about security edge cases, and ended up revealing a woman who had left an abusive relationship, revealing her new contact information to her ex. That was a problem. But I'm not just going to take potshots at the Rainbow Borg. In 2008, I started a hackerspace in Toronto called HackLabTO. It worked out pretty well, but over the years I saw bad patterns emerge in hackerspaces, and particularly around gender. I got tired of arguing over basic things, like whether or not to have a code of conduct / anti-harassment policy, or whether or not sexist jokes were welcome in our IRC channel. It kind of wears on you, and it's also fundamentally boring. I was done having these boring fights. This is a picture of Ada Camp, the unconference put on by the Ada Initiative, a nonprofit which works to support and encourage women in open technology and culture. That's things like Wikipedia, open source, civic data, and OpenGeo. Conversations at Ada Camp San Francisco resulted in the founding of Double Union, which, as far as we know, is the only women-only hackerspace in the world, right over there in the Mission. We have 160 members. 2 startups have already been founded by women who met each other through the space. It's 800 square feet of amazing 3D printers, screen printing equipment, all sorts of stuff. It's a really special environment, and that specialness comes from the work that the founders put into defining culture, structure, and values. There's a document called The Base Assumptions that really articulates that in the kind of level of detail that I think is the absolute minimum for building a healthy community. We made a lot of deliberate choices around delegating power. One of them was that not everybody has to be a voting member. The people who pick the membership is a subset of the overall membership, because not everybody wants to step up to have to make those emotionally difficult decisions of is this person in alignment with our community or not? And that's okay, not everybody has to do that work. I think Hacker School has a really interesting take on this as well. In their social rules, they articulate a bunch of the common failure modes of geek communities. What, you don't know C++? And give each other a common language to intervene in those awkward moments and say, hey, you just well-actually'd me, or you just feigned surprise, that's not cool. Another one that we've run into a lot at DU and in other geek communities is the cookie licking failure mode, which is when you say, oh yeah, I'll fix that bug, and then it sits. And you're like, oh, I can't just give it back. I've already licked the cookie. Having the egolessness to say, oh, actually, I'm overloaded right now. Here's the cookie back. It's clean, I promise, no cooties. That's super important. And it's a really important part of succession planning and fighting burnout. Burnout is something that a lot of us have run into. And one of the things that gives me the bad vibes about burnout is how many of you have unlimited vacation policies? Yeah, danger, Will Robinson. So think about what it is that you want to build in the world. We have a pretty good sense of the changes DU wants to make in the world. It's building a community of practice for women to be able to recharge, level up, and go on and build cool things. How clear is your path to get there? Another one of the gems from the 70s that I've been thinking a lot about is exit voice and loyalty. He later added neglect. Read the Wikipedia page, it's life-changing. I invite you all to spend some time thinking about when it's worth staying and fighting and when it's worth jetting and doing your own thing. And be skeptical of loyalty, and if you find yourself falling into neglect, it's time to change things in a major way. Thank you for listening and enjoy the Unconference.
Thank you.